What's up, Halas Huddlers? Before we jump into this episode, this is a quick heads up. Look, when we sat down, Bob and I, to record our reaction to the Bears Board of Directors voting to move forward with the Hammond, Indiana stadium site, we quickly realized as the episode was going on, it was just going to be really long. And honestly, it needed to be. So we're breaking it down into two parts, okay? Part one, if you missed it, go back. It covered the breaking news and what it means for the future of the Chicago Bears. Now we're into part two, and we're going to get into the question everyone is talking about. Who is actually to blame for the Bears potentially leaving Illinois? We're putting aside the talking points, the spin, the political grandstanding to take an honest look at how we got here. And when we're diving, and then we're going to dive into some of the reactions that I've seen on social media, because some of these stadium takes left us asking one simple question. What were they thinking? Let's get into it. I'm Rob Schwarz with Bear Goggles On. Again, with me tonight, thank you, Bob, for joining us. Bob Weiss, good friend, co-host.
That's right, and welcome in, Halas Huddlers. Happy you join us again for this discussion about this ongoing Bear saga. We are still hoping to get to 2,000 subscribers. We might be there already by the time you're watching this video. Who knows? But if not, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and comment about your takes on this stadium saga. So with that, why don't we get back to our discussion for part two on who's to blame in the stadium deal.
You have to go all the way back to the beginning, and we have to lay this out. And we have to lay this out in framework, and we're not going to make this a 2-hour episode because I'm going to talk about everything from the start to the end. But there are very important things that have taken place that people just seem to keep forgetting. And we keep talking about Kevin Warren. I see so many people talking about how bad Kevin Warren is. Kevin Warren has not lived up to the expectations. Kevin Warren deserves to be fired. I've had conversations with certain people that I've, developed connections with regarding the situation, who thinks that even if Kevin Warren doesn't deserve to be fired, like maybe he needs to be the guy who needs to fall on the sword in this situation to kind of save face from a PR perspective for the Chicago Bears. But if we go all the way back to the beginning, we got to go to February of 2021. And that is when Churchill Downs, that is when they decided that they were going to sell this property. The racetrack had been closed down. It wasn't operational. The racetrack was not in, working order. Could it have been revamped and reopened? Sure, but no one was going. No one's going to these tracks anymore. That's the same thing that happened in Inglewood with the SoFi Stadium. That was also a track that was torn down and a new stadium was built. So they decided to sell. Okay. Well, it wasn't just I'm going to find a buyer in an off-market deal and we're going to move forward. This was we're going to put this up basically for bid, and we're going to figure out who has the best bid, and then we're going to award them the opportunity to purchase the property. Well, the Bears were one of 3 finalists, and they won the bid to purchase the property. That happened, and it was announced in September of 2021. Keep seeing people saying well, you should have known the tax certainty was going to be a problem. Well, guess what? As someone who literally does tax underwriting for property taxes, and we'll get to it, there is no way in hell anyone would have thought that Illinois was going and Cook County was going to do what they did. No way in hell. I never would have proposed that as a analysis model for this property, giving it to the people that I work for and saying, yeah, you guys are going to get screwed if you buy this property. Never would have happened. And we'll talk about what actually went down here in just a second. Okay. 2, people are like, well, you should have known about Illinois politics. Sure. But at the same time, what else are you supposed to do? It's either you stay at Soldier Field or you buy a property, or you move out of the state. And now we're getting close to that point.
Yeah. I mean, the Bears can't, they can't help when that property became available. So they did make a speculative purchase on that property, and speculative purchases come with risk. And what we're living in right now is the risk of speculative purchase. And it's not over yet, but it's just frustrating that, all these hurdles and roadblocks are still in place all this time later.
Yeah. So it's not over yet. But again, stop saying that. Fans who are on the show that maybe you're saying that, please understand the timeline that took place here. Please continue to go back. This did not happen in 2023. This goes back to 2021. Okay, now fast forward. January of 2022 comes. Okay, that's very important. January 1, 2022. That is the lien date for the state of Illinois, okay, for the 2022 tax year. The Bears did not own the property yet. You get to the summer, and Pritzker, the assessor, takes the bid price of $197 million that was public and puts that on the property. Raised that property. Nothing had changed, guys. Nothing has changed. It is a rundown racetrack that does not do anything. It's basically mostly land, not much improvement value. And it went from $33 million, a non-operational commercial property, $33 million to $197 million. You are not allowed to sale chase in the state of Illinois. It is against Illinois state code. It is against the law. You are not supposed to do it. Pritzker ended up obviously technically losing because it went to the board of review through appeals and the whole process, and everything had been changed and lowered. Okay.
I want to restate that a little bit because I see it in comments still that, well, what's the big deal about raising the price or the valuation of the property based on the bid price? Like, that's what it's worth. That's what somebody paid for it. That's not the point. The point is process. There is a way things are supposed to happen, and you're only supposed to have your property assessed during certain windows at certain times, and you can only base it on certain values in those windows at times. You are not allowed to raise the valuation or even lower valuation of assessment, but you aren't allowed to change the valuation of assessment off cycle, and you absolutely aren't allowed to change the assessment of property off cycle for a price that hasn't even closed yet. It didn't even sell at that price. So absolutely, I don't care if you thought that was the right value or not. You can't do it the way the state of Illinois did it.
Yeah, and to your point, so that, again, out of triennial, right? So that was a big key. And then to your point, yes, it hadn't closed yet. How many, look, as someone who has sold property, I have had many instances where, like, my sale falls through. And it's frustrating as a seller, but you got to move forward. I can't value my property at the, $300,000 that it was supposed to close at, but that sale didn't go through. And I ended up only selling it for like $280, right? So then $280 is the number, not $300. But even again, it's not based off of what mine sold for. It's a collective market of how properties are selling. And then there's more involved to it than that. And commercial properties are even more in depth. So, okay, let's get out of the property tax talk. Too much lingo there. Now, fast forward again. Okay, Churchill Downs is fighting this. They win technically. I think they got it down to 95 million, if my memory serves me correctly. Fast forward to 2023. Again, January 1st, 2023. That's the lien date. The property still had not closed yet. Your property is valued based on that date, not January 31st, 2023, when the property actually closed. It did actually close the $197 million, but again, you can't chase that. So again, you now have set a precedent in the state of Illinois. You're not talking lawmakers, but you are talking Cook County. And the Chicago Bears are frustrated because they're seeing what's going to happen. The writing is on the wall. They're now having to fight with legal fees, constant legal fees, fighting, appeals. And we're talking in the state of Illinois, it takes 2 years usually for you to get fully through all of your litigation and get your refunds back. And the Chicago Bears aren't going to trust anyone at this point, and rightfully so, because they're getting fucked over. Excuse my language, but they're getting fucked over. So as the Chicago Bears, if I'm George McCaskey, I'm Kevin Warren, I'm sorry, I'm not trusting anything that the state of Illinois is doing. Kevin Warren, by the way, was still not hired as of January. Okay. He technically was hired, but he did not actually start until April of 2023. This was Ted Phillips. So for those of us wanting to say, well, Kevin Warren shouldn't have bought the property. Guys, Kevin Warren didn't buy the property. He came into this situation. Now, I just want to touch on this very quickly when it comes to Kevin Warren. The Big Ten is literally neck and neck, if not ahead of the SEC right now, guys. Why? Because Kevin Warren found a way to get a TV deal done. I think it was $8 billion that was brought in for this TV deal.
It was astronomical money. I think it was even more than that. It might be $8 billion a year over like 15
Maybe.
years for like hundreds of. It's like an insane.
And he was the main negotiator of that. And yes, and he brought in the USCs of the world. Is LSU too, right? Those are the two.
No, not LSU. USC, no, it's just UCLA, Washington.
UCLA, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Right? The West Coast. Brought some West Coast teams. It was literally, the Big Ten was like the Midwest. And outside of Ohio State and occasionally Michigan, they weren't good from a football standpoint, right? Like, so for him to be able to turn the Big Ten into something, their revenue is like skyrocketing. And Indiana just won. Like, Ohio State has been in it consistently. Michigan has been in it consistently. Like, we're talking about teams that consistently would lose. They would look great in their little playoff and their little games, bowl games. But then once they got to the actual playoff game against an SEC team, they got fucking demolished. Right? The Alabamas, the Georgias would just trash them, and that has changed. And because they have money for NIL.
And I'm not telling like Gary, like, I don't think you dislike Kevin Moore, but the Indiana Hoosiers are a powerhouse now because of Kevin Moore's deal for the Big Ten. Like, that's the impact of, what Kevin Moore has been able to do.
But he ruffled feathers. He ruffled feathers consistently in the Big Ten. Okay. So what happens now? Now he's in Chicago and he starts ruffling feathers right away. Greg Braggs posted something on social media the other day, and I think it was a great way to think about the Kevin Warren situation. I'm gonna just synopsize what he said. I don't know word for word exactly how he said it, but it was essentially along the lines of, look, he did the same thing in Big Ten. People in the Big Ten were complaining, and now look at what happened in the Big Ten. Now he comes to Halas Hall. You have all these, legacy people inside Halas Hall who have been part of the Chicago Bears forever during decades of like downfall and just average play and just nonsense and just doing stupid things like mom and pop crap. And you bring him in and he wants to change things, and he does, and he starts changing things for the better, but it means people are not happy with it and people are let go. And now we're hearing the same thing with the lobbyists, and we're hearing the same things with Illinois lawmakers, and people aren't happy, and he's difficult and not great to deal with. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's easy to deal with. He probably isn't, but he's been on the right side of history with everything he's touched, going back to the stadium in Minnesota. So I'm not ready to say that Kevin Warren is necessarily the problem here. Has he made mistakes along the way? 100% yes. The Bears are not blameless. But the ruffling of feathers, the change of direction, I think is speaking volumes. So for those of you who are listening who are anti-Kevin Warren, go to the comment section. I would love to continue this conversation with you. What about Kevin Warren do you not like? And what is it that he has not done or is doing that you think deserves his job? Right? He should be just fired right now. Like, I want to have this conversation, continue it in the comment section. All right. Let's speed up again. 2023, they close on the property. Nothing happens in 2024. Nothing happens in 2025 until the back end of the year. All we're hearing in 24 and 25 is how the Chicago Bears they need to pay off the Soldier Field Stadium debt, a debt that they already paid their portion off of. But look, there is record. You can go out and find it. J.B. Pritzker on record stating that the Chicago Bears cannot move out of Soldier Field. We cannot allow that to happen until that stadium debt is paid off. And the Bears are the way he worded it, is they're on the hook for that. No. Illinois effed up. They're using their 2% hotel tax. They're supposed to be paying off their bonds. You go look at Minnesota, those bonds were paid off a decade early. You go to AT&T Stadium, that stadium, those bonds were paid off a decade early. You see how often these things are done the right way. It's not being done right in Illinois. Why? Because they kept kicking the can down the road. They're refinancing. And instead of a $400 billion bond bill, that ballooned up to $600 billion. And we're still talking 20 years later. There's still money that hasn't been paid off. What are you doing? So to sit here and think that the Bears are not running properly, the state of Illinois is not running properly. It's just not. So nothing happens. Now Indiana gets involved. The Bears flirt with the other girl who's down the street, guys. They flirt with the other girl, and what happens? The girl next door notices. They finally notice. It's one of those things where, like, when you're with a girl, or vice versa, you're a girl and you're with a guy, it isn't until they see that you're not available that they start showing interest.
And Indiana's not even pretty, right? But
Nope.
You know what she's willing to put out, and so it gets their attention,
You're what, not Stifler? What's the guy from American Pie? Like, you're a sure thing. That's what Indiana is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, okay. So now we're getting closer. We're getting closer, right? And we're now at the point where Indiana gets involved, and you see a state make a decision and go through all the steps. And we're not talking just Hammond. The whole state got behind this situation. They were able to pass a House bill, HB 27, in less than 2 months. The whole state got behind it. And what happens here in Illinois? You got the pilot bill. And what happens? Oh, well, us down south in Springfield and all these rural communities, well, what do we get out of this? We don't care if the Chicago Bears leave because we don't get any of that money anyway. Where's our handout? Then you got downtown Chicago. Well, if they're going to leave Chicago, I need to be able to, redo our developments of our rail yards area. And we need to, where's our kickbacks in this situation and my kickbacks in that situation, and politics get involved. And it's so fucking frustrating because I get that the Shell bill was a small bill and there was a lot of, stuff missing. And it was just the framework of what they were hoping to pass. But then you just get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of just bullshit attached to it versus just focusing on what needs to happen. It's so irritating. And I think I've laid out my side of the things here. The Bears are not blameless, but Illinois is by far the front runner when it comes to who is to blame for what is happening right now.
Yeah, I think you laid it out real well. I mean, the state of Illinois has just fumbled the ball every turn here. They haven't made anything easy. They haven't done anything the right way, and it just, it's not unique to the Bears situation either. Let's say. No. But I also think when we're talking about blame, you said the Bears aren't blameless. Like, these are just two disasters of organizations going at it. Like, the Bears have done a lot of good things, and a lot of those good things have happened since Kevin Warren has come on, right? But this is still a McCaskey-run franchise, right? I mean, my kind of running joke before this whole mess about where you could even build the stadium was that there's no way the stadium is going to even be as good as these other crown jewels in the NFL because the McCaskeys are involved in making the decisions. They're going to cut some corners, they're going to do some stupid things, and then it's just going to turn out to be a spaceship in some stone columns. The same stupid thing that happened before, something else equally as dumb is going to happen now because the McCaskeys are involved. So now at least they have Kevin Warren out there fighting their battles, I think. So hopefully it won't be as disastrous as it was Ted Phillips fighting their battles. But I still don't think that this is Kevin Warren out there running the show, being the field general, and just running back and reporting things to McCaskey. Sorry. I still think it's the McCaskeys like just trying to be on top of things, trying to do the right things, but really not knowing how or what. So now you got Kevin Warren probably fighting battles with them. Yeah, Kevin Warren fighting battles on every front, and it just becomes this ugly, disgusting mess. So when we're talking about blame, I feel like we just haven't spent enough time on George McCaskey yet because there's no way he is completely blameless in all of this. There's just no way.
No, not at all. I mean, he's blame. He deserves part of the blame. Ted Phillips deserves part of the blame, even though he's no longer with the organization. Kevin Warren deserves part of the blame for sure. To me, the PR part behind it, right? Like, get out in front of this and put it out there and make they're not your constituents, but they are the people here in Illinois that are paying or taxpayers, and you're constantly hearing things. And we'll get to the tweets here in just a little bit, because I don't want this to run, too long, but like, get out there and make the narrative yours. Like, set it up and turn this around. I shouldn't be the one out here pointing this narrative out. Mark Batnick, who pointed out what could be with the situation with the property taxes with his white paper, like, he pushed it out there to the point where it's like, whoa, people woke up. Maybe the Bears aren't this crazy with what's going on. Where were you during all of this? Like, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it goes so far as to just today's statement. We're talking about the PR battle. Today's statement is a loss of the PR battle. Like, at this point, you did get the Illinois government to meet you, I won't say halfway, but they're at least heading in your direction. Maybe today's statement's better off saying, you know what, thank you, Hammond, but we're just going to continue to work with Illinois leaders until we have a definitive statement here, right? And then at least you're bringing everybody in together on your way, right? And like, it just still seems like I don't even know if the Bears know where they want to end up yet, which is just, again, just a disaster of an organization over there where they don't even have their own direction. And just one more thing to kind of point out, we're talking about McCaskey, and I'm not blaming McCaskey for this because it's not his fault. It's just the reality of the situation. If George McCaskey or the McCaskey family was worth $15 billion on their own of independent money, this would be a totally different discussion because money fixes a lot of things. You want to have property on the lakefront, but there's still $550 million in unpaid debt. All right, well, let me just dip in my pocket, debt paid, sell me this property at a good deal, right? And now because you have just tons of cash to spend, you can solve problems. But that's also not the case here. So this Bears franchise isn't the same as Jerry Jones getting things done. This franchise isn't the same as Ziggy Wilf in Minnesota, monster money. Like, it just isn't the same thing when you're talking about a family whose fortune is simply equity in the franchise that they're already own, that they're trying to build with.
Yeah, everyone keeps saying, oh, it's an $8 billion, $9 billion, $10 billion organization. Okay, but that's not, first of all McCaskey money, right? They are not the sole owners of the team. I think people keep forgetting that is one. But two, to your point, yeah, they'd be like Stan Kroenke. You could go start building now and get your infrastructure money on the back end, right? Like, you could you front load it.
You can write the loan to the state on your own because you can.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
exactly.
It's just totally different. Just totally different situation when you have money. And even like the Bears are worth $8 billion. Let's just say all that is actually owned by McCaskies. They have to take out a loan against the equity of their franchise in order to even use that money, right? Yep. So there's still extra hurdles that they don't have to deal with. The other franchises don't have to deal with.
And let's touch on that real quick. They are using private equity in this case. They are selling off shares to get private equity in order to help get loans and help fund the $2 billion that they want to put towards this. So for those saying, well, just go get private equity to fund it, they're doing that.
Right.
So it's so frustrating. All right. Real quick, because this is going a little bit longer than I was expecting, but I do just want to touch really quick on where this is going. I think, to your point, I think that something is going to get pushed through in the state of Illinois. I think something could happen. I want to put a percentage on it. For the longest time, I was 60%, 40% Indiana over Arlington Heights. And then right at the end, I flipped it and I was 50-50. And now I'm 85% Indiana. I know you're a lot more still on the Illinois side.
I was when the first flirting with Hammond, I was still 80-20 in Illinois over, I should say Arlington Heights over Hammond. Even when the Bears first said we're looking at Hammond, I was like, guys, this is like an obvious bluff. This is an obvious leverage play, right? It's still all Illinois. And all Arlington Heights. And now I'm probably like, I'll say 66-33, but a 66-33 state of Illinois 66 and Indiana 33. So like, we'll see.
Because it could. You just said they don't seem to know where they want to build. To me, it seems like Kevin Warren still wants to be in the city of Chicago.
It makes sense. It still is an unbelievable thing. And if the stadium authority legislation passes, then that opens up the pathway for Chicago to become a player again.
Yeah. So the only reason that I'm hesitant about the state or city of Chicago is you cannot build on that side of Lakeshore Drive. So yes, they could get to the stadium probably rebuilt in that area, right? Like, tear it down, do the Waldron deck, blah, blah, blah. But you're not going to have what really is what makes a difference when it comes to these new stadium developments is you're not going to have the hotel on that side of the yard or of that of Lakeshore Drive. You're not going to have the development of the retail and that type of stuff. So unless there's I know there is some property that's available like on the opposite side of Lakeshore, and maybe you can build into that and make it still kind of a Bears area. I feel like it's not going to be as big of a development as the other two sites.
Absolutely will not be. But my pure speculation on this is that the NFL really wants this to be another crown jewel destination for the NFL, a crown jewel stadium for the NFL. And having that stadium in that location is a crown jewel location. So knowing that they can't build the same development around it, my guess is that the NFL will more heavily subsidize a downtown location than either Arlington Heights or Hammond location. That's pure speculation on my part, but the NFL seems to be a big part of these discussions too. And it seems like that would be something they would help get across the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, and right now you're fighting Chicago, right? So we'll touch on Chicago a little bit here. I'm just going to read through some tweets and kind of respond to them. And then I, get your response as well. So Brad Biggs tweeted out something like, anyone looking for a large plot of land in Arlington Heights? And it was basically a tweet off of a tweet that David Haw had tweeted saying the Bears are expected to announce today that their board of directors have voted, blah, 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 blah. I love Herb Howard. I really do. Herb Howard says, the most ass-backwards process I've ever seen, purchasing that land before the tax agreements were in place, knowing how the political landscape in Illinois works was absolute negligence. Since then, they've had no choice but to play this never-ending game of chicken with some of the most shrewd politicians in America. Okay, we've touched on this already. I just want to repeat it again. Herb, this started in 2021. You got to go all the way back and go through the whole process. You need the full context. Please understand. As someone who literally does this for a living, I never would have in my wildest dreams thought that the city of Chicago would go from $33 million on a property and crank it up to $197 million because of a bid purchase. That to me is an unqualified sale. It would not count. No way in hell. Please understand how this process works.
Yeah, I mean, that by Herb, that's just twisting the facts around to make something that, right now everyone's out with pitchforks and everyone just smashes like on your tweet when you write something that way. And that's all that is. It's twisting of facts for like farming, and that's a shame.
Yes. Okay, this is Flo's Andolini. He is a Bears beat reporter for the Barber Chair Company. Also the co-host of 79th and Halas. They do a lot. But his tweet says, Bears asking to pay less taxes than a Nordstrom and Cheesecake Factory. And I'm supposed to blame the state for saying, hold on, man. Look, I feel like this is probably more engagement farming. Nowhere did the Chicago Bears ever expect to pay $0 in property taxes. They have said from the beginning, George McCaskey, I'm pretty confident, is a registered Democrat. He doesn't have a problem paying taxes. He just wants to pay a fair share of taxes, and we're going to touch on the taxes here in a minute based on some other tweets that came out. Please stop the bullshit, because what you do, look, this got 5.1K likes. I know it's engagement farming, but people pick up on this and they believe it, and then this misinformation gets spread. As a Bears beat reporter, it is your responsibility and yours, Herb, to understand the nuances and the full understanding of what's going on before you tweet out stuff. You really need to do that, or make it known that it's satire. And none of this says satire.
Yeah, and absolutely. The state of Illinois tax system is what it is. But the Bears are an NFL franchise. They're professional sports franchises. All they're looking to do is pay property taxes on the same level of all the other stadiums out there. That's all they're looking to do. Pay taxes at a fair rate for their industry.
Right. And now there might not be any property taxes in the state of Illinois. So again, we'll touch on that in a second. This guy, I have no idea who he is. I do think that what we're seeing is some bots coming out. We're seeing people in the politics writing journalist world come out. We're seeing people just taking this as a way to tweet things out and get that engagement. But But this guy is invested in Chicago. He is from Chicago. His handle is at Landon20S. Apparently, he's involved with investing, building, hosting, and writing. Okay, the future of Chicago 2035, whatever the hell that means. I love this tweet. He writes, the Bears did not choose Indiana because of a stadium. They chose Indiana because Indiana treated the project like an economic development. The stadium is one piece. The real focus is decades of construction, hotels, restaurants, housing, jobs, tourism, and tax dollars around it. Big projects follow places that want to grow. That's the real lesson here, in my opinion. I love this tweet because it clearly shows the difference that we're seeing between what happened from an Indiana lawmaker's perspective and an Illinois lawmaker perspective. And I'm sorry, I'm siding with Indiana on this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's still tough. Like, I understand, obviously, you're trying to bring up a region, you're trying to bring up everything, but there's been tons of economic studies in the past that have said, stadiums don't necessarily give the return on investment, right? And
I'll be touching on that.
What's that?
I'll be touching on that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then let's move on then if you're going to get to that later. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So next one is another Herb. This is Herb Lawrence. Again, another guy that I absolutely love. Big White Sox guy. I used to be a part of CHGO. He actually quote tweeted my tweet that I responded to Courtney Cronin stating her statement was from Matt Hill, the spokesperson of Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. The Bears have built a storied legacy in Illinois of over 100 years, but have spent the last 6 years and especially the last few months shifting their position on stadium location that has hindered their progress. Today appears to be another instance of that after Illinois leaders have been working with the Bears in good faith. Governor Pritzker has always been clear that he wants the Bears to stay in Illinois and still remains open to a sensible solution that protects taxpayers. My response was, no, the ones hindering the progress are the lawmakers who have clearly not been working in good faith. This is political posturing. Again, Herb quote tweeted me saying, I'm glad that Illinois politicians haven't caved to the Bears. Let Indiana pay the taxes while Illinois still reaps the benefits because folks will stay in Chicago, not Hammond. We briefly touched on this, but I did not respond to Herb. Again, we do follow each other on Twitter. I did not respond to him here. I will at some point, but I wanted to touch on it on the podcast first. I briefly spoke on this already. You are not going to see people flying into Gary, Indiana, unless maybe it's private, right? You are more likely going to still fly into Midway. You're still going to fly into O'Hare. So those airports are going to see an influx of tourism, okay? The city of Chicago, if I was coming from out of state, I am going to stay downtown most likely, or if anything, if there's some nice hotel outside the Bear Stadium in Hammond, I might just choose one night there and then take my family or whoever I'm traveling with and do another couple days since I'm here and see the city, right? Go on the architecture tour that everyone talks about that I still have not, but I've lived here for 42 years. Those things are important to people because when you travel, you figure these things out. Look, I'm traveling to Atlanta most likely for work in October. I'm going to be there the weekend the Bears play the Falcons in Atlanta. I'm trying to figure out how, one, to confirm that I'm actually traveling there for work, and two, can I make that work and get there a day early so I can go to the Bears game in Atlanta? You make things work around what your travel plans are. The city of Chicago is still going to see an influx of tourism. I don't disagree with Herb on this case. That said, they're losing out on the sales tax from the tickets that are taking place in Hammond, Indiana. If they move there, they're going to lose out on the concessions taxes that are going to take place when they move there. And I guarantee you, people are going to be doing bars and restaurants in that area. So you are still going to lose money. If the state had Illinois or had the Bears in Arlington Heights, it doesn't matter because the Bears or people are still going to go to the city of Chicago, but then they're also going to Arlington Heights. So the whole state gets everything. In this case, you're sharing revenue with Indiana. It's not the same.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things that still, I think, get lost on people is that Hammond, Indiana, this site, I just Googled, so verified information. I just Lost Marsh Golf Course to Current Soldier Field, 19 miles. Current Soldier Field to Arlington Park Metro Station, 38 miles or 33 miles, depending on route you take, right? This Hammond site is still closer to downtown than Arlington Park, right? Than the Arlington Heights site. So it's still all right there. And then we talked about the Cam Buckner interview on CHGO the other day. Another thing that he said that was very, very, very interesting. I mean, it kind of goes into the last tweet that you talked about developing the surrounding area, is that far southeast region of the city of Chicago still stands to gain in some development because it's so close to this site. There's still going to be some investment in that neighborhood, redevelopment in that neighborhood. Maybe some of these hotels that might not be in Hammond, they might be in far southeast Chicago, that neighborhood down there. So there's still, some benefit to the city of Chicago by them moving to Indiana.
Yes, 100%. All right, real quick, Darren Bailey, another guy who's going to be running for governor, right, against J.B. Pritzker. If the Bears want to leave Illinois, make them rebuild Arlington Park before they go. Fuck off. Stop. First of all, you're a Republican. You are not supposed to be telling private businesses what they're supposed to be doing as a governor, okay? Fuck off. I'm sorry. I've said it before. I'm a Democrat, okay? As a Democrat, you are going against your own core values of being a Republican here and trying to make these comments. That is not what you're supposed to be pushing for. And for you to think that they should rebuild Arlington Park, and for anyone who is out there, and this is what I wanted to why I put this on here, who keeps saying they never should have torn down Arlington Park. Arlington Park was not functional anymore. That was part of the whole problem. Stop it. I get that you loved it, but it's one of those things I see. Look, I'm a Disney adult. I see all these people talking about all these Disney rides that are changing. The Carousel of Progress is changing. It's not going to be the same one that Walt Disney created, and they're going to change the generations and have different years in place now. Guess what? You weren't going on the fucking ride to begin with. So now you're mad about something that you weren't even giving them a reason to keep? You weren't going to the fucking Arlington Park racetrack? Stop bitching about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when emotion comes in place of logic, and it's one thing that I really try my best to kind of, I maybe won't attach myself to one party or the other, but I do try to base everything on logic and reason. And that is not a logic and reasoned tweet to say that, now the problem is that the Bears need to rebuild Arlington Park, something that wasn't functional or profitable, right? And it's just, emotion. There's so much emotion built up in nostalgia, and I get it. It's a real thing, but nostalgia needs to be fun. Nostalgia should not be driving policy.
Agreed. This is just a note that I saw from a guy who covers, his name's Evan Sittery. He's an NBA, NFL, NCAA reporter. I don't know how true this is, but he's got 68,000 subscribers. So is he truly a guy out there? Someone tell me if it's fake or not. But he's saying that Indiana is open to helping facilitate the buying out of the Bears lease at Soldier Field, which runs through 2033, to play earlier in Hammond if shovels are put in the ground this summer. That was the first thing first time I saw anything about that. That's interesting to me.
Wait, say that again? I think I missed that.
They are willing, Indiana is willing to help the Bears buy out of their Soldier Field lease so that they can leave earlier if they're going to choose to put shovels in the ground this summer.
Okay.
Again, I don't know how true that is. This guy, he's got a lot of subscribers. I don't know him. I've never seen his name before. Evan Sittery. Someone correct me in the chat if he's a fake account. Okay, let's see. Is there any other parties involved? We can skip that one. We touched on this. We touched on that enough as well. Okay, I do see a lot of people again with the whole give the billionaires handout stuff. I think we've touched on this enough on this podcast, but this is not a billionaire handout in the sense that you're giving the Chicago Bears a free stadium. They were paying for the stadium to be constructed and developed themselves. They were looking for what every other stadium out there basically gets. SoFi Stadium has tax certainty. They are part of a tax incremental. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on it. It's a TIF district. Okay, tax incremental financing district. So their taxes have gone up. They went from $8.9 to $14.1 million this past year. Not 50 some $million. That is now the projected low amount, according to Maria Pappas and the Cook County Treasury. That could go all the way up to $200 million per year if there was no oversight on what they decided to do from a property tax market value standpoint. Okay, very, very different. Arlington Heights, they don't even pay taxes. Someone was telling me about the field, the 49ers stadium in San Francisco, and then also talking about the Golden State Warriors stadium down there in San Francisco. Guess what? Infrastructure money, both of them got it. Both of them are part of tax incentives. You're getting those things. Yes, maybe you funded it yourself. The Bears are doing the same thing. They're just trying to get those same things, but people just aren't understanding.
I mean, the billionaires are spending billions of dollars to build the stadium.
Yes.
They're just asking for tax certainty. And then even with, the city's paying for the infrastructure, the state's paying for the infrastructure. Let's just say the Bears do move to Hammond, Indiana. They sell Arlington Park to a different developer. The state is still paying for the infrastructure upgrades for whatever that new developer is going to do as well. That's how a business works. The municipalities are responsible for the utilities and all that kind of streets, the roads, electric, sewers. All that stuff is the municipalities, and then the developer builds on top of it. So no matter what, the state is on the hook for the infrastructure of what goes on in Arlington Park.
You nailed it on the head. I don't understand, however, people can't understand it, and it's not even something that you do for a living. This one's interesting to me. Chiefs move to state of Kansas for mega deal. No one cares. Bears take the same deal to move similar distance, and everyone is confused. What in the world? Look, for anyone who's closer to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Hunts situation, and I have a cousin who's a season ticket holder, please, like, put in the chat, like, is it a bigger deal down there? Is it as big of a deal as what we're seeing here in Chicago? Because this has been going on for 3.5 years. And it's been insanely nonsense, just like the back and forth, the craziness. I'm just curious. Are people up in arms down there? I don't know. Maybe people just don't care.
People care about the Bears. That's what I know.
People do care about the Bears. Corporate tax dollar. We already touched on this one. Okay. No more tweets that I have in front of me. But I did want to touch on what you started to talk about. I thought I had a tweet regarding it, and I must not have bookmarked it. Refresh my memory exactly how. Do you remember how you said? And I was like, "Oh, we'll touch on that."
There have been economic studies that show that the investment from public entities, whether that's state money, tax money, whatever, bonds, whatever it is, the return on investment, so the economic development in the region, doesn't necessarily pay for the initial investment of the stadium or whatever. Tax break, whatever it is, that it's just not worth it.
That's what it was. It wasn't something that I bookmarked. It was something that I was talking to and what I was replying to. But look, people keep referring to these studies that go all the way back to the 1990s, and we're talking about solo singular stadiums. Okay, we're talking about Soldier Field. Okay, situations like that. 100% correct. There is no return on investment for taxpayers and the state in that situation, right? They built this huge stadium, and what do the Bears pay per year? Less than $10 million in a lease revenue, right? It's not a lot. Not a lot. And you have an outdoor stadium that you're only being able to fill with so many events per year. And early on, they weren't doing anything. There were no concerts. There were no MLS games or games of international soccer being brought here. There was none of that. That's changed over the last few years to try to help generate more revenue. But what we're not understanding is you have to throw all of those, economic studies out the fucking window. All you can look at right now are the AT&T stadiums of the world, the Allegiant stadiums of the world, the SoFi stadiums of the world. Okay. Stadiums that are full complexes. Look, Jerry's World, AT&T Stadium, is open 365 days a year. They have tours going constantly. They have events going constantly. Hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue that are going through that stadium on an annual basis. Okay. SoFi Stadium, and I've talked about this on the show. Inglewood is on the brink of bankruptcy. Their unemployment rate was over 17%. What happened? SoFi Stadium development was approved. SoFi Stadium started to be built. All of this influx of money came in. All of this external tourism came in. And SoFi Stadium is booming. Stop looking at old economic studies. It's not apples to apples. Those are apples to oranges. You need to look at what the Bears are trying to do. When you bring in mixed use developments on top of the stadium, it's working. It's working. And if you have private funding, which the Bears are doing, right, it's even more equitable and it's an even better return on investment. So stop with these old school mentality economic studies that are out there. And you have to look specifically at what has been developed over the last 5, 6, 7 years. Okay. That's what you need to look at. It's working. There are ways to prove that it's working. I got nothing else.
No, that's great. I got nothing to even respond to that. Yeah. I mean, it's just, you can just look at what the Cubs have done in that Wrigleyville area, right? It used to just be a stadium. Now they did get a bunch of tax breaks because they built it as a landmark, so they got restoration fees and all that kind of stuff. So they did get different types of breaks, but that whole area now is just constantly up and running, constantly generating revenue. And it's nothing in size compared to what the Bears can build.
I mean, you have an insight into that, and we're not going to talk about it in depth, but like you see that area outside of Wrigley Field constantly. Like, are those bars and restaurants being used consistently, even when there's not Cubs games?
Constantly, consistently. That old Gallagher Way there, that field, that little patch of grass in the middle of the neighborhood, always. People are always there.
It's insane what a little bit of development can do. Like, and that's bringing in full-time permanent jobs and part-time jobs for bartenders and barbacks. I mean, people are getting a benefit out of it that you're not going to have now if it goes out of state. And that's frustrating. And I really hope that your view on the situation is, you're more glass half full and I'm more glass half empty. And I'm really hoping that until there's concrete
gets poured in Hammond, I'm not believing it.
I mean, I might bring a shovel myself down there and feel like there's actually something happening. I don't know. All right. I think this is a long ass episode.
But it's, sometimes it's just fun to get on here, turn the camera on and talk about stuff. So hopefully you guys are still listening, enjoyed the discourse, enjoyed the information, enjoyed the point of views. And if you're not yet, you're still listening now, you must have enjoyed this a little bit, and subscribe. Let us get to 2,000. Help us get to 2,000. Help out the show. Hit like, comment. Let us know what you think. I mean, where are you are they going to Hammond? Is it just is what it is? How much in play do you think Illinois is? Let us know in those comments below.
Yeah. I'm going to probably do some snips of this episode, put them out on social media so that, the later stuff that we're talking about might not get watched. At least they'll be out there for people to view. So if you're not watching the whole episode, maybe you'll at least come across that at some point on Twitter. I have nothing else, Bob. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, guys, let's talk football. Fuck the stadium. Let's talk football. All right. Until next time, bear down, claws up.
Oh, bam.